Doesn't look like much, does it? This is on the extension of Cook Road. It's once we've left the Cook's house and we're headed up toward the river. There were only a few places. I love mangoes, guava. My grandfather had lychee, Cattleya guavas, citrus. Back in here, it's all overgrown now, was an abandoned, when I was growing up, there was an abandoned guava grove. It had been taken care of for quite some time, so they were still very good even though they were abandoned. And when you're on your bike and you're riding all over the place, what a great place to stop, gather up a few guavas and go home with them. But this is the last piece of raw land there that's headed up toward the river.
And
they haven't.
Goldridge owns it, I think, still.
Yeah.
That's where they did. We farmed it.
Pretty soon it'll have, and that's it, that's what's happened. There are these multi-million-dollar homes behind very strong gated communities. I mean, these are not little drop-arm gates. They are, your vehicle will bounce off of them. People are very serious about their security, and they're everywhere. They're all over Iona. I drove down to the end of Iona Loop Road thinking I'd go into Compass Rose Marina. That's where it used to be. Well, there's a big gate there.
Can't get there now.
You ain't gonna get there. You might get there from the water, but they're probably watching you.
You make the circle and go back.
Yeah. So I remember that one because we got called one time by Iona. There had been an explosion and a fire on a boat there. They cut a bunch of the boats loose, of course, to get them going. Well, they were already on fire. There's about 10 or 12 boats drifting out there in their little harbor on fire. They did not have a fireboat at the time. We did. So I was part of the crew on that fireboat that went out there that day. And we must have spent all day putting fires out and dragging the boats back into the dock so they could do their insurance claim and everything. But yeah, it's quite. Well, I'm talking about that. Jonathan Harbor. You know where Jonathan Harbor is? That's the name that they've picked now. Turn in at Port Comfort Marina. Got that restaurant right out front. And you hop over that little bridge they got there at Port Comfort. And as soon as you hop over, you better be ready to turn around. There's maybe room for 2 cars there. Another gated community.
So you know that
Connie Mack Island?
Connie Mack Island. It was called Connie Mack Island. There was one house on it.
Yep.
Owned by Connie Mack.
Around that way.
I used to be able to walk around the seawall and fish. You didn't have a problem with that. Then as time got on, the only way to get there to fish it was be in your boat. But they had those sawtooth sawfish you could see working around as you were fishing for redfish and trout and whatever. But yeah, went from Connie Mack Island to Jonathan Harbor. Jonathan Harbor just sells easier, doesn't it?
There's just a little wooden bridge.
Yeah. They really dressed up that bridge. They had to.
Yeah.
You know, well, they had to make it stronger because there's some really nice houses there. And if the fire department ever needed to get there,
Well, not only that, you got a construction vehicle.
well, yeah.
Everything to get over.
Oh, I like this one. And we'll talk about this one a little bit. Sun Retreats, Fort Myers Beach. I think they got lost. This is right there on John Morris Road at Cook Road. This started out, this is an RV park. This had probably one of the largest standing grove of mangoes I've ever seen. These were the most mature trees growing up. You could climb up in them 20, 30 feet. And they were just planted in nice rows and all of that. And some of the best mangoes I'd ever had. And I'm a pretty good connoisseur of mangoes. And I was wondering, who planted them? Who put these here? And all that. And everybody kept telling me, well, this is a John Morris mango. Just like there's Hayden's and Kent's and Tommy Atkins and all kinds of varieties of mango. This is a John Morris mango. Well, it sounded good, you know. That's the only story you heard.
We always just call them Hayden mangoes.
Yeah. Well, they aren't John Morris mangoes. John Morris Road is named after John Morris. And he came to Fort Myers from up north. Give me just a second. Hang on.
I met his son one time, but I didn't realize that he told me a lot of history about it.
Yeah, they came down from Georgia with his first wife, and she died in 1906. And then he and a partner brought the commercial property that's now a RV park. When they cleared all those mangoes out, they put mobile homes in there, raised them up. You can bring your $500,000 tandem axle motorhome in there for the summer or for the winter, the season, park it, have a little mobile home to live in, and leave your motorhome right there. That's why they had to get rid of the mangoes.
Now, I was told the story I read that he had something to do with the University of Florida, that they were experimenting with mangoes.
Might have.
So
That may have been where the whole thing, but,
It's just, I run across this story, I don't know.
yeah. Well, he met his second wife. She was 20 years younger than him. They were married, then they moved into Monroe Street downtown. What I really liked about this, you know what her name was? Flora Woodring Morris. She's a Woodring. He's not here tonight. But yeah, I don't know if they just didn't know. I know for the longest time, when they were developing certain things in Estero, they wanted to have a Bonita Springs address. So I just thought Bonita Springs sounded better than Estero. And I mean, I guess it's marketing, but you know, Fort Myers Beach, and it's on John Morris Road between Cook Road and Iona Loop, and a little ways from Fort Myers Beach.
So it's just around the corner, I could ride my bike up there.
Yeah. So, this is the first Station 2 of Iona McGregor Volunteer Fire Department. All of the stations today throughout Lee County, they've adopted a common numbering system for the station. So you could have a 2 or 3 digit number for the fire station. But these are all volunteers. There's a woman named Richards. Mrs. Richards lived on McGregor Boulevard, just before you entered that trailer park, right there on the curve. I can't think of his name right now. But we found out that she owned this lot.
Now, that was close to Water Lane?
Right there, yep,
Right.
just down from water. And we approached her, and she made him a heck of a deal, a very good deal. And it's just a Dean Steel building, and quite a group of guys. And I was working for the city by then, but then they ultimately tore this building down and built the new one right behind it. A lot more features, not just a Dean Steel building that,
What year is that photo, please?
I'm gonna put it
70s.
early, probably mid-70s. I worked there 1 year, from January 72 to November 72. And, sorry for this fella right here, these two guys next to the end, that's Connie and Jerry Medina. Connie was one of the commissioners, and his son Jerry ended up being the volunteer fire chief, and then the paid fire chief once they became a fire district. I just had this picture because it reminds me, it's right there at the corner of Kelly and McGregor Boulevard. That's the entrance to McGregor Woods, but that's the entrance to my grandparents' house, or what used to be my grandparents' house. 60 acres they had back there, and yeah, there was a grass landing strip back there. My dad flew. He ended up being a tail gunner on a dauntless fighter in the Pacific Theater, and his brother John flew the Flying Fortresses out of North Africa into Europe with the bombers, and they had gotten their first little bit of training right there, you know, and their father, Fred Chappelle, was the paymaster and one of the supervisors at the Western Union building on Punta Rassa. So this gives you a little bit idea what we're just looking at. Kelly Road, Barbara B. McGregor Boulevard. So the bank we were just talking about, all of this was potatoes. And if it wasn't potatoes, they were out of season, it was glass. Say what, Charlie?
There was cattle there for Fred Meat Market.
He had, you know, McGregor, like I said,
Yeah.
cattle on both sides. There was a nice fishing hole down here. Boy, I love going down there catching bass and
I
bluegill.
think the Watsons, the old man did that, they put a water hole on.
Yeah, but, yeah, he had the cattle on it, like you said, for the agricultural
But
exemption.
where his house was, it was a row of palm trees on each side of the big
Yeah.
long lane.
You know, up toward the front was the caretaker
Right,
of the
right.
place, and then Fred lived in the back. He's kind of a little bit of a recluse. He just didn't get out a whole lot.
Well, just him and his wife, they didn't,
Yeah.
they didn't have any kids, no family.
Yep, they just enjoyed it, but now you can see this enhanced drawing, the various houses that are there, the entrances into Coconut Creek. So this is the schoolhouse that was next door to us, 1924. It replaced a school that was built in 1909. The farming community wanted a better school for the migrants. They just wanted a more educated workforce, and so they built this school and opened it up in 24. My dad attended school there for a few years and then went on to Fort Myers High. Because of the depression at the time he went in there in elementary school, and that his father, my grandfather, working for Western Union, he had the ability to either have an apple or an orange and part of his lunch that he brought from home every day. Well, that was unheard of. I mean, people during the Depression and the years after didn't have that ability. So he was always bartering for that apple, sharing that apple, because that was a big deal for them. And, you know, Dad was into sharing.
What year did that close down?
It was closed down when I was, as I always do it, you know, I mean, from the time I was growing up, you know.
What grades did they have here?
The grade, this was an elementary school,
1, 2, 3.
yeah, and I'm not sure when it closed the second
I
time.
know my sister went there, and then they ended up going to the beach, so it had to be late 40s.
Yeah, my brother went to the beach elementary, I did not. I went to Orangewood for the first 3 years, and then they opened up Villas, and I went 4th, 5th, and 6th
Well,
Villas
yeah,
school.
Billy went there, they all went there together.
What I liked about this picture, there were two entrances to the school, one on each end, and once it got landscaped, they put Suriname cherries there. Boy, I could just sit there on those steps all day, and there I am again, watching my fingertips turn red, eating Suriname cherries. Did I tell you I like fruit? So that was a pretty big deal to me. But yeah, they've added on to the back of the school. It's a separate building behind it now, that they've expanded this professional center. It's really pretty nice. But all we had to do was walk 50 feet, 75 feet from our backyard, and we were in the school.
You didn't run into a rattlesnake?
We did one time.
No.
It was a big one too. Tall grass there in the back,
Yeah.
and he was probably about 6 foot. Now, you recognize this one, Charlie.
Yeah.
This is the house of Fred and Ruby Cook and Charlie and Billy.
Is that? That don't look like it.
That's it. That may be a different, unless my wife got out and took a picture of a house that looked just like it. But no, I think this is the back of it. But
Yeah, but the roof line don't fit.
I know what you're saying, but this is it.
Well, I got a picture of the house right there on the table, and it's the roof
Yeah,
line.
I mean,
The roof
this
line
is-
don't fit that. And besides, it's all cleaned up now.
Yeah.
That's not the old farm.
It may, but that's what it looks like today, because that's the picture I took.
They got it all cleaned up.
Oh, yeah, this is your picture you're talking about. It's cleaned up. Didn't they have a plaque on it?
But the roof line don't fit, huh?
Wasn't there a plaque on it or something that identified it as one of the original farming communities?
I don't know, he lives in the other house over there.
There's one in Coconut Creek. What house is that? That was one of the original flat houses. The clubhouse for Coconut Creek. Got the real thick cypress siding.
Yeah, that's where we found that, that's what we did.
That's the W.
Yeah, they kept the old
Okay.
house.
That's the W.
Yeah, that just don't look right.
And of course, the little
What
house.
else was there?
That's right, I remember.
Is that all there was there, Richard?
What?
The telegraph house? How-
You know, you hear
It
so
had
many
to be
stories.
bigger, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, this was the telegraph. These are 8-inch floors,
Oh.
8-inch masonry floors. This building was, we call it the White House. And it sat on the ground. After a hurricane had flooded it, the government came in and raised it up, raised the whole building up. They had 8-inch masonry floors to support the weight of the batteries for the telegraph system. The other one, that little thing, it used to be down a little bit further out of the side of this picture, right up on the rocks, up against the water. And with what was in it, to me, it looked like just a big J-box. It had 3 cables coming in, 3 cables going out, and a bar across from to connect the two. So if you brought those cables up from underwater from Key West and all and point south, you had to connect them to send it on up to DC and all, because they talk about it, this is how we learned of the sinking of the battleship Maine in Havana Harbor.
Now, my mom and dad said they used to go down there and get information from hurricanes that was coming up.
Yeah.
Because they had no other way to get the information.
That little door, when there's one on the other side, you step down about 3 foot onto a dirt floor. This is another one of them. During the Cuban Missile Crisis, Mom and Dad said, okay, we'll make this, because by then it's abandoned, we'll make this our bomb shelter. And we stored food and water, and we had a hand pump air filtration system. So we were 4 miles, we lived 4 miles from this house. I said, okay, thinking about it now, okay. They launch out of Cuba.
Gosh.
We gotta get everybody together and drive 4 miles, get down to this building and all that. I figured we had about 0 chance today, and even if you got into that building, but then, back when it was like stop, drop, and roll, and put newspaper over your head if you were in a school classroom or something, you're thinking, sounded good, but thankfully, but then the red houses, these wood clapboards are red. There's actually 2 of them there, they're twins, and then behind them are 3 small 1-bedroom efficiencies that were green. This one back here was a small efficiency. The gentleman that operated the drawbridge, when the first causeway had a draw, that's where he lived. He stayed there. But this was shortly before everything was torn down. This land was sold to the Jimmy Connors resort, back when Jimmy Connors had his name on it. And I don't think they ever did anything with it yet. I mean, the condos are a little further down, they were always there. But, yeah, that's, I've got some pictures up here that just didn't put in, but the last day before it was torn down with Leon's 4 kids, all of us cousins and nieces and nephews sitting on those steps just before everything got torn down. Now there's a group of good-looking guys, I'm telling you. Our hair was getting a little long, we were about due for a haircut. That's a crushed oyster shell driveway in our house. Of course, shoes were optional. But this was every weekend we were on the water. And we came back with reds, some snook every now and then. But we all loved the redfish. Redfish.
Your granddad run the dairy.
Yep. Got some great pictures. There's a picture in here of a Spanish king mackerel. They used to launch themselves out of the water, the humming of the diesel engines on those ferry boats, and they throw themselves onto the deck of the ferries. I think that's it.
I remember we used to go out and catch king mackerel all the time. You can't get any.
Well, and that's it. That mackerel, and we fish right in there between what's known as the B and the C span.
Right.
During the season, we'd catch northern bluefish,
Right.
mackerel, king mackerel, all right there. You gotta go 20 or 30 miles offshore now, if you're
Mom
lucky.
and Dad used to catch shark in that same area, right?
Yeah, I mean, we'd get grouper out of there
Right.
because of the causeway blade. There was all kinds of stuff going on. If we got another minute or two, I don't wanna bore you all, but I got a couple of cute stories. So, it's a good thing George Watson had been a diver in the Navy. Had the suit with the big screw-on helmet and all that.
And then Beth's husband, Bennett,
Yeah.
Barrett,
Yep,
he used to, and the Kellys, they used to all dive.
they were all divers. But one time, somebody driving onto the deck of the ferry boat there in Punta Rassa kind of got mixed up on the brake and the gas. And nobody died, nobody got hurt. The only thing destroyed was the car, but it went to the bottom, and that's a deep water port there, it always was, and the water moves through. So they called up George, and he's gonna come down that afternoon, take the cable from the wrecker, and this was an event. I mean, we got the station wagon loaded up, picnic basket, all us kids. We were going to go watch a show, and we did. I mean, this was entertainment. So we're sitting there on the seawall and all that. And George goes down, and it didn't take him long. It's not that deep. It's not like he's got to go to the ends of the earth. And it's hooked up, and he's doing all that. And he said later, I thought it was the current and all that because water moves through there, but little pieces of gravel and sand were hitting the face piece of the that diving helmet he had on. And he didn't think too much about it. And things all hooked up now, and he's getting ready to go. He turns around, and there is this mammoth Goliath grouper. We called him the Jufi, at least a 600-700 pounder. And it's just watching him. And it's moving the gravel and the sand. And George would say later, I don't know which one of us was more surprised. He said, the thing just turned and swam off. And they are massive. They are massive fish. And so that was that. And then another time, my dad was up in the wheelhouse of one of the ferries. And they were on that run over to Landings Drive on Sanibel. And they looked out to the east side of the ferry boat, and they saw this shadow. At first they thought it was just the light and water, and then the shadow started moving and kind of even swished a tail. And it was bigger, a lot bigger than the ferry boat. And so they watched this for a while, and they finally decided that it was a whale shark had come in that close. And we know we got them again, they're out there on the reefs offshore, but they used to have pygmy whales come in, give birth there at the Sanibel landing. So it doesn't surprise us that a whale shark would have come in there and just kind of got lost, moving around. Of course, one of the pictures I have here, my dad on the deck of the ferry boat, the water behind him is as blue as my shirt, or as blue as the sky. And we'll never see that again, with our polluted waters and everything. But what it used to be like.
Well, when they built Cape Coral, they kind of screwed
That goofed
everything
it up.
over, you know.
And there's those people that say the islands, the spits that the causeway was on, should have been turned 90 degrees to help promote the flow of water out of Tarpon Bay on out San Carlos Bay. A lot of ideas, but
You go down to Joe Williams and swim in the river, and like you said, the water was so clear.
it's like, being out in the Atlantic, open Atlantic. Well, I've got pictures, I got stories, but I tell them I'm a firm believer, and you can only absorb what the butt can endure. You know, when you sat in a chair for a while, you tend to oversell your products and you lose them. So with that, I'll be happy to tell lies and stories. I mean, I got pictures of my grandmother as a child on school in Sanibel. I got all kinds of stuff, and I left a lot of it at home. But I want to thank you all for putting up with me.
Oh, thank you, Richard.
I'll stand up here and chat with anybody you'd like to for a while.
Did you have a sister who was a Chappelle?
Excuse me?
You had a sister that was a Chappelle that passed away?
Yes, Jeannie Bass.
Yes, I was with, in Southern Days with Jeannie.
Yeah, it's been 4 years now. Her niece, her daughter, her oldest daughter,
Yes.
just came down for a couple of days, and she doesn't like the cold weather. She lives in Colorado now, Estes Park.
That's right, yeah.
16 weeks later, she left to go back to Colorado. I said, damn. Nice girl, but, 16 weeks of a house was a little overbearing. It is. It is. I've got a duplicate too.
Oh, do you?
Yep, but,
Is this all you guys?
That's son Andrew Leon. That's Ruby.
Uh-huh.
She married Frank Lott and Galen.
Oh, that's Ruby
She-
Crumpler?
That's Ruby.
Oh,
This
yeah.
is Barbara Briggs. She married Jimmy Briggs. If you ever bought a Buick, you dealt with Jimmy Briggs. And then that's my mom, Gloria. And of course, here's a group of yahoos. But this was a lot of nieces, nephews, cousins, and all that. And this was the day they started tearing them down.
Oh, these were the two,
The twins, the
The twins,
reds,
yeah.
and then also the green, everything that was there was torn down. The green ones, even Leon's home, Andrew's had his own Stilton.
what's this up there? I don't like it either.
This is my grandfather was one of the paymasters and one of the operators at the Western Union Telegraph. And that's just some of the paperwork when they were paying people, generating